Hot take time. Nature sucks. Nature is a necessary evil. We can and should evolve past depending upon nature for resources. There's no question about it. We need nature for its ecosystem. The ecosystem supplies clean air, food, and other resources. When the ecosystem is thrown out of balance, one or more of these resources becomes threatened. The ecosystem may benefit us, but the ecosystem only exists and survives because of evil. Nature is pretty cheap. Deforestation is a problem, but we could easily use money to both bribe people to stop deforestation and also pay people to plant trees. Both cost next to nothing by the standards of developed nations. Environmentalists like to talk about the externalities of environmental destruction caused by, say, oil production, but they don't like to talk about the externalities of dependence upon nature. These externalities are felt most by the gazillion animals who live there. Watch a nature documentary, and you will see that things are not peachy for the inhabitants of Natureland. Rainforests are 250 feet tall, and every layer is filled with gruesome violence, with crimes exceeding humanity's worst atrocities occurring every single day. If you're a prey animal, you live in constant fear of disembowelment. If you're a large animal, you still risk being victimized by any combination of parasites and illnesses. On top of that, some of animals' biggest threats come from members of their own species. In addition to brawls and cannibalism, animals love to commit sex crimes. Animal reproduction is overwhelmingly the result of non-consensual events, and our dependence upon their sex crimes as an essential component of sustaining the ecosystem is nothing to celebrate. Some people say that animals like living in the wild and being a part of this ecosystem where they are often victimized. After all, it's natural for them. Freedom is evolutionarily desirable because other animals generally do not have your best interests at heart. Captivity usually means imminent death. This rule has been true for most of life, but becomes invalid in the case of benevolent captivity. Animals live longer in captivity because of protection from predators and access to stable sources of nutrition and medical care. If you free an animal, sure, it will be happy to be free for the first minute or so, but then its survival instincts will kick in as it senses new threats around it, and it will spend the rest of its significantly shortened life living in fear of predators, maybe starving and dehydrated, experiencing untreated pain, as animals are notoriously poor doctors. Animals hate captivity, but they hate illness, starvation, and getting eaten alive even more. The sum total effect of living in nature is a net negative for animals. Nature is a murderous shithole, and this will be true for the rest of time. Nature as it is cannot be redeemed. Let's do a comparison of humanity and wildlife here. On the left, we have a representative of humanity. People of a certain nationality who in the last century did some very bad things, but then they stopped and now do zero of the bad things they did before and are also 10% vegetarian. On the right, we have snakes, who murdered countless sentient beings in gruesome ways and have not slowed down in the past 70 years except when supply constrained. Now, many people are tempted to excuse violence when it is the only way to survive, but that is even worse because if the only way you survive is by killing others, then you literally can never stop. The only way our natural ecosystem sustains itself is by facilitating this truly endless cycle of fear and violence. Nature is evil, but we still need it. In the short term, we must continue to preserve nature and its cruelty so we can obtain the resources we need to survive. In the long term, we have to take action both for our own sake and for the sake of other sentient life. A possibility is to research synthetic replacements for the ecosystem's functions. If we make carbon capture plants, then we don't need trees. The other possibility is to research ways to create a simplified, sustainable ecosystem. The natural ecosystem is complex with millions of species of life, and there is no way to eliminate suffering in all of their interactions, so the ecosystem must be simplified. Some people like biodiversity and advocate for preventing extinction, even of mosquitoes, for example. I do not think the current amount of biodiversity is necessary. We should not be trying to preserve animals whose very existence requires continuous suffering in part of themselves or others on the off chance that they might come in handy. The continuation of a species is not inherently good nor necessary as long as individual members of that species can live a good and full life without offspring. Pandas, for example, are happy to go extinct, but people keep forcing them to reproduce for reasons that do not account for their personal preferences. To be clear, despite my endorsement of aspects of negative utilitarianism, I am not an advocate for the extinction of humanity. If we die, then our knowledge is lost and any less advanced species to next achieve human-level intelligence, on Earth or on other planets, are doomed to repeat our mistakes. Simplifying the ecosystem will allow us to reduce our dependence on biodiversity in a world where species are dropping off the planet like flies. A simplified ecosystem also enables the self-sustaining spaceship, which is crucial if we want to become a multiplanetary species. If we reduce the elements of the ecosystem from millions of species down to tens or a few hundred, the elements become manageable. We can create an ecosystem where the relation between every sentient life form is truly mutually beneficial and suffering is minimized or eliminated instead of exploited for our benefit. To summarize, nature is a necessary evil, but we can and should gradually phase out our dependence upon nature for resources. And that's the video. Thank you for watching. Bye!